famous for its rocky coastlines, lighthouses, and endless forests. But beneath its natural beauty lies a much darker truth. From abandoned asylums and haunted lighthouses to cursed universities and the very home of Stephen King, the Pine Tree State holds secrets that will chill you to the bone. Tonight, we're unlocking the doors to Maine's 15 most haunted places, where history and horror collide, and where the spirits of the past refuse to rest. Stay close, because by the end, you might never look at Maine the same way again. Uno. Seguin Island Lighthouse. You find yourself standing at the edge of Maine's rugged coast, staring across the restless waves towards Seguin Island. Perched high above the sea is the Lighthouse, built in 1795, under George Washington's orders, the second oldest in the state, guiding countless sailors away from deadly rocks. Its walls hold centuries of storms, shipwrecks, and whispers of tragedy. But as night falls, the true story surfaces. Long ago, a keeper lived here with his young wife. To ease her loneliness, he brought a piano across the water. At first, its music filled the island with joy. But soon, the repetition of the same tune, played over and over, drove the keeper into madness. One stormy evening, he snapped. In a fit of rage, he murdered his wife, then turned the weapon on himself. Since then, strange reports have poured in. Sailors drifting past the island claim they hear faint piano notes drifting across the waves, long after the house fell silent. Some visitors swear they've seen a woman in white staring from the cliffside, her outline fading into the mist. Even modern Coast Guard keepers have spoken of footsteps pacing in empty hallways, doors slamming when no one else was there. And tonight, as the wind howls, you can almost hear it, the sorrowful melody of a piano carried on the sea breeze, warning anyone who dares to listen that Seguin Island will never forget its bloody past. 2. Buck Cemetery, Bucksport. You step into the quiet town of Bucksport, where an unshakable legend lingers in the graveyard. Here lies Jonathan Buck, the town's founder, a man of wealth and influence in the 1700s. He built this community, carved order out of wilderness, and secured his name in Maine's history. But with power came whispers of cruelty, and it is those whispers that gave birth to a curse. The tale begins with a woman accused of witchcraft. Some say Jonathan Buck condemned her to death, watching as she was executed by fire. As the flames consumed her, she cried out that she would follow him to the grave, that her mark would stain his memory for eternity. Years later, when Buck was buried, the curse returned in a chilling form. On his granite tombstone, a dark stain appeared, a mark shaped eerily like the outline of a woman's leg and foot. Workers tried to scrub it clean. They even replaced the stone entirely. Yet every time, the mark returned, sharp and undeniable, as if burned into the rock itself. Locals began to whisper that the witch had kept her promise, branding him forever. Visitors still come to see it. Some say the air feels colder as you approach, that your chest tightens when you stand before the stone. Tourists leave with photos of the mark, and skeptics leave with silence. Because whether you believe in curses or not, the footprint remains, etched into stone, mocking the man who thought he could silence a witch. 3. The Kennebunk Inn, Kennebunk. At first glance, the Kennebunk Inn is nothing but charm, an elegant building from the late 1700s, once a private home, later transformed into a bustling hotel. For centuries, it has welcomed travelers seeking warmth, fine food, and a place to rest along Maine's southern coast. Its walls have seen countless guests, from weary sailors to wealthy merchants. But beneath its polished exterior lies a shadow few dare to mention. The inn is said to be haunted by the ghost of a former clerk, a man devoted to his work who never truly left. Long after his death, guests began reporting strange disturbances. In the quiet of night, footsteps echo down the empty hallways. Doors rattle without reason. Lights flicker violently before plunging rooms into darkness. Some guests have been jolted awake by knocks at their door, only to find no one standing outside. The most unnerving tales come from those who've stayed in the upper rooms. They describe a figure standing at the end of the bed, watching silently. A shadow that vanishes the moment they cry out. Staff, too, admit to feeling unseen eyes following them, especially in the kitchen and hallways after closing. And perhaps the eeriest detail of all, several visitors have captured strange shapes in photographs, hazy figures, pale faces in mirrors, and orbs of light floating in corners. Each one adds fuel to the belief that the Kennebunk Inn is more than just a historic hotel. It is a place where the past still checks in, night after night, and refuses to leave. 4. Strand Cinema, Seguin. The Strand Cinema opened its doors in 1929, a grand movie palace that brought light, laughter, and Hollywood glamour to the quiet town of Seguin. For decades, it was a gathering place where families crowded into velvet seats and children marveled at the silver screen. But behind the glittering facade, a darker story began to unfold, a story that still lingers in the shadows of its empty aisles. Employees whisper that the cinema has never truly closed for the night. Long after the last reel has ended, footsteps echo along the balcony, heavy and deliberate. Shadows flicker across the stage, though no projector runs. Doors slam in locked rooms, and the sound of a woman's voice drifts through the dark, low and mournful, before fading into silence. Some workers claim to have seen her, a pale woman in old-fashioned dress, standing near the curtains, her face half hidden in the glow of the exit light. She appears for only seconds, but the chill she leaves behind is unforgettable. Even hardened skeptics have admitted the feeling of being watched while sweeping the aisles, as if unseen eyes track their every move. The Strand still operates, its marquee glowing proudly on Main Street. But if you ever sit alone in the theater, waiting for the film to begin, listen closely. In the hush before the lights dim, you may hear it the creak of a balcony seat, the soft rustle of a skirt, and realize that in Seguin's beloved cinema, some audiences never left. Captain Lord Mansion, Kennebunkport. Built in 1812, the Captain Lord Mansion was the grand home of a wealthy sea captain, a monument to prosperity and elegance along Maine's coast. Today, it stands as a luxurious inn, its rooms filled with antique charm, fireplaces, and polished woodwork. Guests come seeking romance and history, but many leave with stories they cannot explain. The most enduring legend is that of the Lady in White. She is said to be the captain's wife, forever gazing from the mansion's windows, waiting for her husband to return from the sea. Some guests report seeing her figure at night, standing in the glow of moonlight, her outline sharp against the glass. Others awaken to find her at the foot of their bed, silent and sorrowful. before dissolving into air. Cold spots move through the hallways, sudden and unnatural. Mirrors seem to flicker with fleeting shapes that do not belong. Staff admit that doors open and close on their own, and fireplaces sometimes roar to life, though no hand has touched them. Photographs taken inside often reveal strange anomalies, glowing orbs, faint faces hovering just beyond the frame. Though the mansion sells itself as a place of romance, its true heart beats with loss. The lady in white remains, trapped in an endless vigil, her love bound to the sea that never gave her husband back. And if you spend the night here, you may feel it too, that lingering presence in the room, a reminder that some love stories never find their ending. Six, Mount Hope Cemetery, Bangor. Mount Hope Cemetery, founded in 1834, is one of the oldest garden cemeteries in the United States, a sprawling landscape of marble angels, winding paths, and ancient oaks. It holds the graves of Bangor's most prominent citizens, war heroes, and even criminals. On the surface, it is a place of peace and remembrance. But beneath that calm exterior, Mount Hope has earned a chilling reputation as one of Maine's most haunted sites. The cemetery is forever tied to horror because Stephen King himself walked these paths, drawing inspiration here. In fact, Pet Sematary filmed scenes among its tombstones, sealing its eerie fame. But beyond fiction, there is a darker truth. Buried here lies Al Brady, a gangster gunned down in 1937 after a bloody crime spree. Locals insist his spirit still stalks the grounds, unwilling to rest. Visitors report hearing gunshots echo through the night air, followed by the sound of running footsteps, though no one is there. Some have seen shadowy figures moving among the gravestones, vanishing the instant they are approached. Others describe sudden waves of despair crashing over them, leaving them breathless and trembling. Paranormal investigators claim to have captured disembodied voices on recorders low, muttering words that grow louder near Brady's grave. By day, Mount Hope Cemetery is tranquil, a place for quiet reflection. But by night, it transforms into something else entirely. The silence thickens, the shadows grow longer, and if you dare to walk its paths, you may discover why Bangor's most infamous dead still refuse to sleep. 7. Museums of Old York. Old York. In the quiet town of York, where colonial history lingers in every brick and timber, stand the Museums of Old York, a collection of historic homes, taverns, and buildings dating back to the 1600s. By daylight, they are preserved treasures, offering a glimpse into Maine's earliest days. But when the sun sets, those same rooms awaken with echoes of a past that refuses to be forgotten. The most infamous presence is known simply as the White Witch. Visitors and staff alike describe sudden drops in temperature, doors opening with a slow, deliberate creak, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched. In one house, footsteps are heard pacing the floors above, though no one is ever there. In another, a pale figure draped in white has been spotted drifting through hallways, vanishing into the walls themselves. Paranormal investigators have flocked to Old York, capturing chilling evidence, flickering lights caught on camera, whispers on recorders, and glowing orbs dancing across empty rooms. Even skeptics leave unsettled, admitting that the energy within these buildings is different. Heavy like the very walls have absorbed centuries of grief, secrets, and restless spirits. What was once a thriving colonial village is now a museum to the living, and perhaps to the dead. And as you wander those ancient halls, you may wonder if the stories are true, if the White Witch still guards Old York, searching endlessly for peace that history never gave her. 8. Wood Island Lighthouse, Saco Bay. Rising from the rocky shores of Saco Bay, the Wood Island Lighthouse has stood since 1808, guiding ships through fog and storm. Its beacon has saved countless lives, but its history is scarred by blood. Long ago, a drunken argument between a squatter and a local deputy ended in gunfire. The deputy was killed, and in despair, the shooter turned the weapon on himself inside the keeper's house. Since that day, the island has been cloaked in sorrow. Visitors and Coast Guard keepers tell chilling tales. At night, they hear heavy boots climbing the spiral staircase, yet no one appears. Doors slam with violent force, even when locked. Some have awoken to the sound of muffled cries echoing through the stone walls, the desperate wails of a man doomed by his own hand. On stormy evenings, the atmosphere turns unbearable. Shadows drift across the light tower, seen from boats passing in the distance. Fishermen whisper about a figure pacing the gallery, a lantern in hand, signaling through the fog. But when they draw closer, the balcony is empty, the light swinging eerily on its own. Wood Island Lighthouse remains active, its beam cutting through the darkness. Yet those who know its past believe the spirits of that tragic night never left. And as the sea crashes against the rocks below, the island whispers its warning. Some lights guide the living, others keep the dead company. 9. Fort William Henry Pemaquid Beach. Standing proudly on the coast of Pemaquid, Fort William Henry has been built, destroyed, and rebuilt across centuries of war. First erected in the late 1600s to protect settlers from French and native raids, the fort became a place of violence, betrayal, and bloodshed. Walls meant for defense instead witnessed executions, starvation, and the clash of empires. Today, only ruins remain, but the spirits of those who perished are said to linger. The most haunting legend is that of Taukalexis, a Native American chief captured and hanged here. Locals whisper that his restless soul prowls the grounds, searching for justice. Visitors walking among the crumbling stone walls have reported strange chills, even on the warmest summer days. Some have seen a dark figure moving through the shadows, tall and broad-shouldered, vanishing when approached. Tourists exploring the fort's underground chambers describe hearing voices echoing in languages they cannot understand, whispers that grow louder the deeper they go. Cameras malfunction, batteries drain instantly, and photographs reveal ghostly shapes where no one was standing. By daylight, the fort is a historic site, a lesson in Maine's violent beginnings. But after dusk, the ruins tell a different story. The silence feels alive, heavy, with centuries of pain. And if you dare to walk the grounds at night, you may feel it too, an unseen presence at your side, reminding you that Fort William Henry was built on more than stone. It was built on sacrifice, and it remembers every drop of blood spilled. 10. Fort Knox Prospect. Built in the mid-1800s to protect the Penobscot River from British attack, Fort Knox is a massive granite fortress with endless tunnels, iron doors, and echoing chambers carved into the hillside. Though no battle was ever fought here, the walls absorbed decades of military drills, harsh winters, and the quiet despair of soldiers stationed in its cold, damp corridors. Today, visitors come for history, but many leave speaking of shadows and whispers that cannot be explained. Those who have walked the fort's underground passages describe an oppressive darkness, a weight that settles on the chest. Some hear boots striking the stone floors, steady and deliberate, as if a ghostly patrol still guards the halls. Others report the clang of metal, like muskets being loaded, reverberating through empty rooms. Paranormal investigators have made Fort Knox famous, capturing disembodied voices on recorders and strange figures on video. On more than one occasion, a deep, guttural growl has been heard in the casemates so chilling that even seasoned ghost hunters fled in fear. Visitors claim to feel hands brushing against their arms or icy breath on their neck. Though no one is near, the fortress stands as a monument to Maine's military past. But its true legacy may be the spirits that remain behind. And if you wander its tunnels after dark, you may find yourself surrounded by more than history, by unseen soldiers who never stopped keeping watch. 11. Maine State Prison, Portland. The old Maine State Prison, first built in Thomaston in 1824, before being rebuilt and expanded over the years, was once a fortress of iron bars and stone walls, housing some of the state's most dangerous criminals. Within those walls, lives were broken, punishments were severe, and despair clung to every cell. Though the prison was eventually torn down in 2002, stories of what happened inside refused to fade. Former guards and inmates alike whispered of dark presences that stalked the corridors. Some prisoners claimed to see shadowy figures lingering outside their cells at night, silent watchers whose eyes burned through the darkness. Guards spoke of hearing voices call their names when no one was there, or feeling icy drafts sweep through locked and windowless blocks. Even after its closure, the land where the prison once stood remains unsettled. Visitors have reported sudden nausea, overwhelming sadness, and the sense of being followed. Paranormal investigators exploring the ruins before demolition captured strange recordings, low moans, cries of anguish, and even screams that seemed to echo from beyond the grave. The Maine State Prison may no longer stand, but the energy of suffering lingers. The walls may be gone, yet the memories remain etched into the earth itself. And those who know the stories believe the spirits of the forgotten still pace in endless confinement, trapped in a prison without walls, serving a sentence that never ends. 12. Old Port, Portland. By day, Portland's Old Port is alive with cobblestone streets, waterfront shops, and the hum of restaurants and bars. It's a place of charm, where history blends with modern life. But when the night grows quiet and the crowds thin, the Old Port reveals a darker face, one shaped by centuries of sailors, smugglers, and tragedy along Maine's coast. In the 1800s, the district was a bustling hub of shipping and trade, but also of crime and desperation. Sailors vanished into the fog, tavern fights spilled into the alleys, and whispers of Shanghaiing men, drugged and forced aboard ships, haunt its history. With so much violence and sorrow embedded in the streets, it's no surprise that many believe spirits linger here still. Locals tell of phantom figures appearing in upper windows of long-abandoned warehouses, faces pressed to the glass before vanishing into nothing. Bartenders working late hear laughter echoing long after the doors have closed, the clink of glasses raised in a ghostly toast. Some pedestrians walking alone at night report footsteps behind them on the cobblestones, steady, relentless, only to turn and find the street empty. The Old Port may draw visitors with its beauty, but beneath the glow of its street lamps lies an atmosphere thick with the past. And if you walk its alleys after midnight, you may feel it too, the weight of unseen eyes watching, as if the spirits of Portland's waterfront still wander, unable to leave the port they once called home. Pier 13, Stephen King's home and Bangor. On a quiet street in Bangor stands a house that seems pulled straight from the pages of a Gothic novel. Built in 1858, the Victorian mansion belonged to Maine's master of horror himself, Stephen King, with its wrought iron gate shaped like spiders and bats. The house draws fans from all over the world, but beyond its fame as the author's residence, many whisper that the property and the town around it carry a strange, unsettling energy. King often walked through Bangor's streets, cemeteries, and old neighborhoods, drawing inspiration for his terrifying tales. The fictional town of Derry home to it, with its sewers and lurking evil, is a shadow of Bangor itself. Locals say that while King wrote from imagination, his stories are rooted in something real, something felt in the bones of the city. Visitors lingering near the mansion claim to see fleeting shapes in the upstairs windows, though the house has been mostly empty since King moved. Neighbors tell of streetlights flickering wildly as you pass the gates, and a heavy silence that falls over the property after dark. Some believe the countless hours King spent conjuring nightmares somehow left a mark, pulling the town's own ghosts to the surface. Even Bangor residents admit there are corners of their city they avoid at night. The bridges, the drains, the cemetery paths where shadows seem to stretch too far. And standing before King's house, with its iron gate curling like claws, you can't help but wonder, did Bangor inspire Stephen King's horrors? Or did Stephen King awaken the horrors already waiting there? Then 14, Kennebec Arsenal, Augusta. Rising on the banks of the Kennebec River, the Kennebec Arsenal was built in the 1820s as a federal munitions depot. Its grand granite buildings stood as a fortress of power, supplying weapons for nearly a century before falling into disuse. Later, the grounds became part of the Augusta Mental Health Institute, where generations of patients endured treatments now considered cruel and inhumane. With a past steeped in war and suffering, it is little wonder the Arsenal is regarded as one of Maine's most haunted sites. By day, the Arsenal looks abandoned, tall windows staring blankly, roofs sagging, doors chained shut. But after sunset, the energy shifts. Paranormal investigators who have entered the decaying buildings report chilling voices whispering from the walls, footsteps following them through empty corridors, and sudden temperature drops that freeze the skin. Some claim to see apparitions in military garb, pacing as though still guarding the river. Others describe gaunt, desperate faces peering from the upper floors, remnants of the asylum's tormented patients. One team of ghost hunters even captured a figure in a long coat moving through a hallway, only to vanish into solid stone. The Kennebec Arsenal is a place where two histories collide: soldiers and the mentally ill, war and madness, and the echoes of both seem trapped here, their pain etched into the walls. Stand outside its looming buildings at night, and you'll feel it too. The heavy silence, the weight of sorrow, and the sense that the Arsenal is still very much alive with those who cannot leave. (15) Roby Andrews Hall, University of Southern Maine, Gorham. Standing since the late 1800s, Roby Andrews Hall is one of the oldest buildings on the University of Southern Maine campus. Its Victorian design, with looming towers and long, echoing corridors gives it an air of elegance by day, but by night, the hall becomes something else entirely. Students have whispered about its haunting presence for decades, calling it one of the most haunted dorms in the state. The building's long history is marked by tragedy. One story tells of a young woman who took her own life in the tower room after a failed romance. Since then, residents report hearing sobbing in the night, soft at first, then rising until it fills the entire floor. Yet when they search, the halls are empty. Others claim to see shadowy figures drifting across the stairwells, or to wake in the dead of night with the chilling sensation of someone sitting at the foot of their bed. Doors slam without warning, lights flicker violently, and more than one student has fled their room after objects moved on their own. Perhaps most unsettling are the windows of the tower itself. Even when locked and abandoned, students and staff passing by have sworn they saw a pale figure gazing down at them from above, watching, waiting, before vanishing into darkness. Roby Andrews Hall is more than just a dormitory. It's a place where history clings, where heartbreak still breathes, and where the past refuses to stay buried. And if you dare to spend the night there, don't be surprised if the hall's unseen residents come to remind you you are never truly alone. You've now walked through the shadows of Maine's most terrifying legends, from ghostly soldiers to weeping spirits, from cursed halls to entire towns that seem alive with the dead. But remember, these places aren't just stories. They still stand, waiting, watching, and some say, still haunted by those who came before us. So, if you ever find yourself in Maine after dark, ask yourself, will you dare to step inside? Or will you keep walking before something decides to follow you home?